All right, here we are in the middle of a dry January. And, are you still on your I'm trying to get in shape thing, or have you given up? Do you know what you should believe? Why don't we kick out some myths, Jane? What myths are we going to kill?
I mean, there's a lot of food myths on what you should eat or not eat. And I think some of it's like we say, shop the perimeter of the grocery store because nothing in the middle, like canned food, is good for you. That's a good myth to find out if it's true or false.
Who knows the truth to this stuff?
My buddy from examine.com. And examine.com is a great database of nutrition and supplement research that, we get misinformed by our friends on the internet and journalists and things like that. But our friend, Brady Holmer, he's an expert in exercise science and physiology and has a master's degree in human performance. And he's a researcher. So he's got all the information for us.
Well, look at you, smarty pants. Nice to meet you, Brady.
Nice to meet you, Steve, Jane. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to bust some myths about nutrition with you guys this morning.
Let's click through a few of these because I want to get as many of these in as possible. Protein, good or bad for you?
Protein, great for you. It's a very popular topic lately. Everybody should eat more protein. There's kind of this myth that maybe it's stressful for your kidneys or that it's going to cause you to lose bone mass. But all of that's kind of been disproven. In fact, especially for older adults, protein seems to be great for you. So there really is kind of no upper limit. I think most experts right now would recommend to try to get as much protein as you can.
Brady, let's talk about what I said at the top of the segment, and that is canned food. We always want to eat the outside of the grocery store. Fresh better for us, or is canned or frozen okay?
So, the problem with canned foods versus fresh is sometimes canned foods can contain larger amounts of sodium than you would maybe find in fresh foods, and some people may try to limit their sodium. But again, salt kind of being bad for you is maybe another myth. But overall, it doesn't really seem that canned foods have much less nutrients than fresh food does. So,
really?
If canned is all you can afford, or canned is, more tasty for you or requires less preparation, it seems that can be a great way to get your fruits and vegetables.
Well, that's great. Let's pick up on the salt run here. Salt's in everything. Salt's bad if you have high blood pressure. Salt's bad for your heart. Salt's bad, bad, bad. You got to have salt. And the thing is we have too much, I guess, right?
Some people have too much. So some people have something called salt-sensitive hypertension. For those people, definitely limiting their salt is a good thing. And, of course, most people should try to limit their salt in some way. But it's important to remember that we need salt or sodium. It's important for a lot of functions in our body. And so, don't sprinkle spoonfuls of salt on everything, but overall, I think there don't seem to be many limits for most healthy people on how much salt you should kind of eat in a day based on kind of what the American Heart Association and other organizations recommend.
I just say don't put the salt on the table, so you can't salt anything. Myth about eating often will boost your metabolism. A lot of people are fasting, saying eating less and eating once a day, but eating often, does that really boost your metabolism?
Definitely not. So you've probably heard, people will say that, if you do too much fasting, you'll go into starvation mode or you'll slow your metabolism. Your body doesn't shut down when you're fasting. In fact, it just switches over to burning fat instead of carbohydrates since you're not eating. Eating more often doesn't really increase your metabolic rate any more than does eating less often. So, if you like to fast for a prolonged time in between meals, or eat 6 meals a day. Both of those approaches seem to work. Overall, it's kind of about how many calories you're eating throughout the day rather than how many meals you're eating.
So you're not saying don't eat 6 times a day, just don't expect that to be the cure.
Correct. That's certainly not the cure because you could eat 6 times a day and eat 6 times as much as somebody eating once or twice a day.
Carbs, good or bad?
Carbs are fine, again, as long as you kind of just moderate your overall energy intake. A lot of this fear about carbs has to do with something called the carbohydrate insulin model. Basically says that if you eat carbs, you spike your glucose, and that raises the levels of this hormone called insulin, and that will promote fat storage. Some evidence to support that, but overall, if you compare a high-fat diet or a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, calories are equal. Those both seem to promote similar amounts of weight loss. Again, as long as you're controlling your calories, that seems to be the most important thing.
Nick, you appear to have a follow-up.
I have a question. It may sound weird, but I grew up in a family where we put accent, which is MSG, in instead of salt in things. And I still like the taste of accent. And there used to be concerns about MSG. Am I okay to still intake MSG, or is that just a no-no?
Yeah, I think probably a tiny amount. Maybe if you go out to eat or order some Chinese takeout, won't be bad. But I certainly don't think it's probably good to eat it all the time. I do think there have been some concerns over MSG and the harms it might have for the brain and things like that.
Oh.
But again, I think we should remember a lot of the time some of the studies come from rodents and not human studies. But nevertheless, it is kind of this artificial ingredient that we should probably limit our intake of.
Okay.
Continuing on, fats, good fats, bad fats. How do we know which fats are the fats we want to be fat with?
Eat fat, get fat.
Yeah, eat fat, get fat. That myth has definitely been busted. But in terms of the types of fats you should eat, we have unsaturated fats and saturated fat. Saturated fat is going to be in things like butter, cheese, red meat. The unsaturated fats those are so-called good fats in things like avocados and fish and nuts. You want a little bit of both, but overall you want your unsaturated fats to probably be higher than your saturated fats. So, you're getting a lot of your omega-3s and your omega-6s, but a little bit of butter, a little bit of cheese, on your steak or with your steak doesn't necessarily seem to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I say a day without butter is a day wasted. Okay, I don't say that, but somebody else did. Let's talk about foods that say they are healthier. They're all natural, 100%, organic. Do we believe the label that we're seeing on that product?
I don't think you should. There's a lot of so-called greenwashing when it comes to these health products. So, you'll see vegan placed on products that are obviously vegan or organic. A lot of times these phrases don't have much meaning behind them. And I think we should remember that just because something is organic doesn't necessarily make it healthier. It just means maybe it was grown without pesticides, but of course you can wash your fruits and vegetables when you get home to kind of get a majority of those pesticides off. But I wouldn't really stick or put much faith in kind of what's on labels. Manufacturers can get around and use a lot of loopholes to place those labels on food packages.
Red meat and bread, a sandwich, good or bad?
Red meat seems to be totally fine, again, in moderation. Red meat definitely was, I think, unfairly demonized with studies showing that people who eat more of the red meat tend to have, greater risk for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. But those are what are called association studies. So they show an association, not necessarily a causation. People who eat more red meat, maybe they're just eating more McDonald's burgers with fries and Coke. They're not necessarily eating a grass-fed steak with some nice Kerrygold butter, So red meat, definitely fine, again, in moderation, and maybe look for higher quality meats if you're doing that and it's within your budget. And then when it comes to bread, again, I keep saying this word like moderation, and some people hate that word, but if you want a slice of bread with dinner or to have a sandwich every now and then, it goes back to the carbs necessarily not being bad for you. I think it's definitely fine to have those things every once in a while if it fits kind of within your overall dietary pattern.
One more, Jane.
Oh, I was just looking at Brady's website. It's fantastic.
Well, why don't we send him there then? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Well,
so
thank you, Jane.
You're welcome. So Brady, you're in Florida, and this is what you do. You've got a Substack newsletter. You got a great website, BradyHolmer.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And I actually live in Austin, Texas now, so I should update my website apparently.
Yeah, got absolutely.
Yep, do that. But are the myths available right there on the website?
The myths are not available on my website.
Well, post those, dude.
I'll post them on the website. These are available on examine.com if people want to visit our website.
Okay.
That's where those nutrition myths come from. But my website, bradyholmer.com, and then I also write a Substack. It's called Physiologically Speaking. I didn't probably pick the most easy to spell name, but that's where I do most of my writing about nutrition and myths like this. Also myths regarding exercise and whatnot, if people are interested in that.
And people can reach out and have a consultation if they're curious and they want to learn more. And I think that's fantastic because we want people to live happier, healthier lives. It's about longevity and functionality.
EXAMINE, examine.com, and look for Brady Holmer everywhere you can. Use him for a consultation.
Yeah. And I'm going to do an extended interview with Brady. We're going to deep dive into these myths and really talk a little bit more about it on my podcast, Creative Living.
And you'll put that up after you get back from the jungle, provided you survive?
I'm going to put it up before I leave. Thank you very much.
All right, we're hoping you survive.
Brady, you're the best.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Steve, Jane, thanks a lot.
All right, appreciate that.